what really happened was I was, it's a tail end of my martial arts career, fighting in tournaments, and I would only make few appearances in some of the tournament, and I was competing in non-combative part of competition, which is called the form competition. And I had my health club and karate school here in Mason City. And one day I get a phone call from Eric, and he said, and he knows I'm a car nut, so he just bought himself a black vet, and he was driving home from work from CNN Center to his home in outskirt of Atlanta, and he's telling me all about his cars. He says, "Hey, I just got this vet. It's great." I said, "Yeah." I said, "Eric, so what's going on?" And he said, "By the way, I'm trying to do some business in Japan." I said, "You still speak fluent Japanese, don't you?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "How'd you like to go to Japan with me, next couple weeks?" I said, "Sure." I said, long as you buy a ticket, I'll go. So, and even that time, he says to me, because Eric and I wanted to do kickboxing shows, bring the martial arts history of us back to television. So we had a few ideas of how we could do that, and we talked about it. So he says, as the meeting gets going, he says, there's an opportunity, and you'll know when I start talking about karate, then you can kind of cue in and, start talking about the martial art, doing maybe a kickboxing show. I said, "Great." So he said, "Well, I'll call you next week." So he kind of gave me a date that we were going to leave, and I don't know if Eric will remember this, but I'm thinking to myself, come Monday, Tuesday, God, I thought he was talking about us leaving on Thursday or something. So I finally called him, and I go, at his office actually, and he was always nice enough to pick up my call. And he says, "Yeah." And on the other end, the guy's busy, so he's trying to get you off the phone kind of situation. So I say, "Hey, how you doing?" And trying to make small talk, and I can tell he was busy. And he says to me, he says, "Well, yeah, I'll talk to you, later on." And I said, "Well, but before you go," I said, "Eric, are we still going to Japan like Thursday?" And he said, this was his classic Eric Bischoff. He goes, "You're the guy I was talking to. I'll call you right back." And certainly he called me back, and he says, "Yeah, can you be here like Thursday? I got your ticket out of Atlanta, and we can go." And actually, that's how I ended up going to Japan. Now, the best part of this story is that Sonny Onoo have no idea about what's about to take place in Japan. So I'm getting a free trip to Japan, go eat some good food. Hopefully we can talk about our project of martial art, kickboxing. So, not knowing anything that have taken place between WCW and New Japan. So we have a meeting with New Japan. And Eric says, "Look, don't worry about it. Don't say anything. If we get opportunity, we'll talk about the kickboxing." Great. So we go to TV Asahi television studio, and they had a conference room. And this is the first time I meet Riki Choshu, who, scariest looking big Japanese guy. And then you got Masa Saito, who's 64 Olympian, and most of a lot of the American wrestling fan knows who Masa Saito is, who just happened to pass away last week, who was very kind to me with all the thing about wrestling.
Not on that day though.
Yeah, no, I didn't know him, and he's got one lazy eyes, So when he's looking at you, you don't know if he's looking at you and you don't know which eyeball to follow. But
and he was also involved in that he wasn't there for when Ken Patera threw the rock through the window, but
yeah, but he got
when it
arrested.
came he was involved with a scuffle with the police after
Right,
he got
right, yeah, and he ended up doing time in Wisconsin, you know.
So he's a tough guy.
Oh, I mean, legit tough, scary guy. Then you got Mr. Sakaguchi, who was part of New Japan Pro Wrestling, who was, he's about 6, he's a big Japanese guy. He's probably 6'3", you know, heavyweight judo champion. And then, you know, then we had Mr. Baisho, who was their financing guy. But these are scary-looking Japanese guys. And I don't know if we were on the same level when we were talking, but what I remember, at least in my mind, that they were up a little bit up on a platform, and they were up here, and here's Eric and I, and Tiger Hattori, Mr. Hattori, their famous referee for New Japan Pro Wrestling, who still works with this company even to this day, who speaks fluent English because he's a Japanese guy like me, but lives in New York. So Hattori, as we go into the meeting, and mind you, I don't know anything about what took place between two companies. So first time I'm hearing this is the word that's coming out of Eric Bischoff's mouth. So Mr. Hattori says to me, he goes, "You translate." And I wasn't expecting to do that. I was just supposed to stay quiet. So I get put on the spot. So okay, and it's interesting thing enough, my Japanese is my 11-year-old Japanese, because that's when I left Japan. So, because in Japan, as in a lot of country, certainly in Asian country, people talk different with how they address people, and I address yourself against somebody who's older or senior. So it's a little bit different. So, with that, I'm translating what Eric Bischoff is saying to these Japanese scary guys. For the first time, I'm hearing it and translating. So it turns out that prior management of WCW has taken upward of $500,000 out of New Japan, an agreement to do a talent exchange, to send WCW talent to New Japan for their tours or their shows.
And that's Bill Watts' regime, right?
I believe so. And unfortunately, reason why these guys look like they wanted to kill us and stick us in Sumida River, because none of these guys are really talking right. I mean, they're just looking at us like, why you guys are here, kind of look. And turns out that as I'm listening to Eric and as I'm translating, that Eric is apologizing for the debacle of not sending any talent, and basically just took all their money and not sent the talent. And I'm hearing this and going like, oh, now I'm understanding why these guys look like they want to kill us, because I'm representing a company that took their money.
So Eric didn't give you any warning?
No, none. He gave me no heads up whatsoever. I'm sweating bullets. And basically, Eric was there to rekindle their relationship, or this relationship. And Eric's a pretty smart guy, and he says, listen, let me try to make that up for you, without you guys paying us, because you already paid us. So let me, under my regime, I'm in charge, let me try to make up for the money that you paid for with the service that we promised you. So all of a sudden, Masa Saito says to me in Japanese, who is going to be our contact person? Because the problem always has been is I will contact the office, and by the time I got an answer that we were requesting the talent, we couldn't make the logistic work. We didn't have enough lead time to advertise and a lot of other stuff. So there was communication was really an issue. So without skipping a beat, Eric says, oh, that'll be Sonny. And I'm looking at him like, when did I start working for you? So in essence, at that moment, that's how I got into wrestling business.
So what was your contract like for that job? Because I guess you didn't quit your businesses here.
No, and I said, afterward, Eric kind of whispered to me, and he says, don't worry. He says, look, all you have to do is answer the phone, tell me what they want, and we'll make it happen.
So you received like a yearly.
I think it was something like $18,000 a year to answer telephone and make sure this communication channel was open. And Eric was always kind enough that and they knew that Eric and I was friends, so he would always I'd be able to get in touch with the man in charge, and that was a big issue back then. So. And that's how it happened. Was with also there was a Brad Reagans who worked for New Japan, was all-time high school friend of Eric Bischoff, and he's the kind of try to set this thing, kind of rekindle this relationship. So with Brad and I working together, we got things done, and that's how the New Japan WCW relationship blossomed, to say the least.
Did you deal with any of the WCW guys that were being sent over there directly? Were you the one talking to them?
Yeah, because some of the tours that they would go on, I got to go on a tour with them. Randy Savage, Road Warrior Hawk, there was a few issues with those guys, and Ric Flair, and because they would do a big show, and our big guys would go on their big shows, Tokyo Dome shows and Osaka Dome shows and Fukuoka Dome shows. What people in the United States probably don't understand is that when Japan has big shows like the New Year January 4th Tokyo Dome show, you're talking about 30, 40,000 people in the arena, and that's in essence their big pay-per-view, kind of like the big show that we have here, and it's pretty crazy when you go to see it, and when you see a wrestling show with that many people.